So this video is for my friend Harrie. Harrie and I went to school together in England, and somehow both ended up on this side of the pond. Me in Toronto, Canada, her over in Chicago. And because she is also a huge Disney fan, I decided that today I was going to make her cheddar cheese soup from the Le Cellier restaurant at the Canadian Pavilion in Epcot. You're welcome. So this recipe calls for chicken stock. So I have a roast chicken that we ate the other day, and it's just the carcass left, and I'm going to make stock out of it. Got my stock pot on the stove heating up. I'm going to first brown the chicken. Then I'm going to cover it with water and add a few spices. Of course, you don't have to do this. You can always use store-bought. It's a lot quicker, considering that this will take about 3 hours to become a nice stock. Once the chicken is browned, I added enough water to almost cover it. In this case, it took about 2 liters. Now I'm just bringing it up to the boil. As you see, it's releasing some impurities in the foam that you see there. All you're going to do is skim it off. Just put it into this mug. And when all the impurities are skimmed, you're going to add the spices. I've removed most of the foam at this point, so I'm going to add 5 or 6 peppercorns, then a pinch of thyme, get that in there, a couple of bay leaves, 1, 2, and then we're just going to turn it down to simmer, and we're going to leave it for 3 hours. Watch it carefully, make sure it doesn't dry out, and then once all of this bone broth, Gwyneth Paltrow, Martha Stewart nonsense is out of the way, we'll get on to the very serious business of making some soup. As anyone who has been to Le Cellier knows, the perfect accompaniment to your cheddar cheese soup is pretzel rolls. So I'm going to be making those as well as a side. The pretzel rolls take a couple of hours, give or take, with your rising process. So I'm going to show you how to start those earlier. And then the soup, which takes about an hour, I'm going to work in with the rising so that you can be working from beginning to end, no wasted time. Okay, I'm ready to start on our pretzel rolls that will go with the cheddar cheese soup. So here we have 2 3/4 cups of bread flour, 1 teaspoon celery seed, 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt. So we're going to put those all into our mixing bowl. Assistant, can you help me with the mixing bowl?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll
let's start. Okay, start putting them in. Put them in the bowl. 1,
2.
Excellent. Okay, now the celery seeds there.
6.
Perfect. And finally, here's the flour. That's a big one. Ready? 1, 2, 3, in it goes. Woo! All right. Now we're going to get the mixer all set up, and we're going to start adding the water. So here we are, all ready to add the water. The water is going to be quite hot when I add it, at approximately 125 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna get this thing running and start adding the water. It's gonna start coming together in the dough. Do this for about 1 minute to form a smooth, elastic dough. and then I'm going to place the dough ball into a warm, greased, medium-sized bowl. So I have now placed the dough ball in a greased, medium, warmed bowl. I'm going to cover it in plastic wrap and with a tea towel, and I need to leave it somewhere to rise for about 35 minutes or so, somewhere out of drafts, a little bit warm. So I put it in my oven with just the oven light on. That should give it enough shelter and warmth to get nice and puffy. So while we're waiting for the pretzel rolls to rise for the first time, I'm going to give you a recipe for extra credit. So this is lunch. 2 slices of white bread, preferably Dempster's. Nothing wrong with Wonder, just a preference. 1 can no-name cheap tuna, a tablespoon of mayonnaise, always Hellmann's, always full fat, some Maldon salt and pepper, and reserved tuna juice. That would be for the cat. Satchel! Satchel! Satchel, Bun. Satchel! You did? Here he comes. Come on, Satchel. What's this?
What is that?
That's tuna juice. Tuna fish sandwiches are always to be cut on the diagonal, never on the wonk. Only losers cut on the wonk. So let's get this party started the right way with half a pound of streaky bacon. So I just take it out of the package like this. You're going to cut it into matchsticks. Just pretty easy, especially if it's cold. Let's go through it. About 1/4 inch slices. We're going to add this to a Dutch oven, or as I like to call it, a saucepan. And we're going to heat this for about 5 minutes in its own grease until it's just cooked through and getting a little brown. Our stock is now done. 3 hours are up. It has a lovely color to it. The stock itself has been reduced by around half, and the chicken has all broken up and is falling apart. So now what I'm going to do is sieve this and just let it cool for a few minutes, skim off any fat that has accumulated, and then I can add it to my recipe when it's needed. So let's get this bacon into the now vacant pot. We're going to just let that do for about 5 minutes. The cheese soup recipe calls for 1 medium onion. So I'm going to show you how to correctly prepare and chop an onion. First of all, I've already chopped this in half, as you see. I have done it down this middle as opposed to across. So you want to go through the stem. So here is part of it that I've already prepared. I've peeled off the outer layers, the inedible part, obviously. The end is still intact. So what you want to do with the end here, slice down through, down and through, until all of the onion is chopped. Again, don't cut right through to the end. And what this does is it allows you to have a complete onion intact here. Then you turn it and go the other way, and it provides that fine dice, which is exactly what you're looking for. So repeat for both halves of the onion, and then all you have at the end is the back of the onion. The recipe calls for 3 celery stems. I'm not a huge fan of celery, but I'm going to follow the recipe to the letter for the most authentic rendition. So what you're going to want to do is just fine slice your celery. Then we are going to add the celery, the onion, and 4 tablespoons of butter to to the bacon that's already cooking in the pan. Alright, so the bacon is clearly baconing over here. It's getting brown. Not quite there yet. I'm now going to throw in the vegetables, the onion and the celery. Give that a stir. I'm going to add the 4 tablespoons of butter that we previously discussed. Get that in there. And you're going to cook the vegetables until just softened. Because I'm making this for my family and I know that Glenn doesn't actually like onions, I'm going to give it an extra bit of cooking. So I'm going to cook mine longer than you would probably care for. I'm going to probably cook it for about 10 to 15 minutes until the onion is pretty much absorbed into the sauce. Alright, so my pretzel bread has risen to about twice its size. So I'm going to give it a good punch down. I'm then going to roll it out on a floured surface, knead it out, and then divide it into 8 different rolls. Once it's divided into 8 round rolls, I'm going to leave it to rise again on a floured baking sheet for about 20 minutes. So here are our pretzel rolls on the floured baking sheet. I'm going to just slightly depress each of them in the center, like so. Then I'm going to take a serrated knife and I'm going to slash that typical pretzel X in the top of each of them. So just a quick slash, slash, and do that for each of them. Then I'm going to get them back in that oven with the light on, not heat, just the light, for a further 20 minutes until they about double in size. So at this point in the recipe, what I would strongly suggest is pouring yourself a huge glass of wine or pint of beer and drinking it, because let's face it, you're covered in flour, you're about to eat a pound of bacon, and the soup is just made of cheese. So you're not going anywhere. I suggest you get comfortable. So your veg and bacon has all come together. It's softened enough at this point to move to the next stage, which is making it into a soup. You're going to add 1 cup of regular flour, and you're going to mix that in, making sure everything is coated really well. One of the keys here is that you do not want to burn the flour, so you're going to do this over about a medium-high heat for 4 minutes. Then we're going to add our chicken stock. Alright, our flour is whizzing away there. We are ready to add the chicken stock. We're going to do this quite quickly. 3 cups of ideally homemade chicken stock. Whisk, and we're going to add it, whisk it around for about 1 minute, bring it up to the boil, and then we're going to turn it down to a simmer for 15 minutes. So here we go. In it goes. Whisk, 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 whisk until it becomes smooth. Bring it up to that boil and then turn it down for those 15 minutes. So now the flour has all been incorporated. We're going to now add in 4 cups of milk. Bring it up to a simmer. And we're going to make sure that it does not boil. You do not want this milk to boil, so watch it very carefully. You're going to simmer for about 15 minutes, very gently. So we're into the final phase of the pretzel rolls. They have risen about half again, and they're ready for boiling. So you want to add a pot of water, about 1/4 cup of baking soda, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So you want to bring that to a rolling boil, and then we're going to drop the pretzel rolls in 4 at a time for about 30 seconds, get them boiled up, and then we're going to put them on a baking sheet covered in cornmeal. So while this is coming up to the boil, turn on your oven 375, and you're going to be cooking the rolls as soon as we're boiling them. So the water is now boiling. You're going to take your pretzel rolls, and by the way, I don't hold out much hope for my pretzel rolls. Bread is kind of my arch nemesis, and I have great difficulty with it, and these look distinctly non-risey, so we're going to try them out anyway. In your spoon, into the boiling water. You do 4 at a time. 2, 3, and 4. You're going to give them 30 seconds, and then you're going to flip them, do the other side, fish them out, and put them onto your baking sheet, which has been greased and covered with a surface of cornmeal. Then we're going to dress them and get them in the oven. Alright, so the rolls are out, looking interesting, but you know, we'll see what happens. So we're going to give them a quick egg wash. So take 1 egg white and a pastry brush. Just give them a little bit of a dollop on top. This should bring out some color on them. If you use malt, it will bring that rich, dark brown color out, but this should do some of it. So let's just cover them all up. My oven has already heated up, so we're good to go. So after egg wash, you're going to get some ideally coarse salt. I have here the Memories of Sicilia, and I'm just going to give them a quick sprinkle. It's that lovely typical pretzel salt that you'll find. And once these are all done, they're going in the oven, 25 minutes, 10 minutes of rest, and then we are eating. So we're in the home stretch. We have our soup. I'm just warming it up slightly. I'm going to add in 1 pound of cheese. This is what 1 pound of cheddar looks like. Now normally I would say to use the expensive sharp cheddar, but at this point I only have the orange stuff. So it's going to be a little milder than the restaurant version. However, it's just going to melt in there nicely and it's going to taste delicious. So it's going to start melting now. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. This is a really scientific measurement right here. About a tablespoon. And then we're also going to add in a tablespoon of Tabasco. I probably, for the palate of the people I'm cooking for, will not use the full tablespoon, but do spice to your liking. After this is done, as soon as it's smooth and melted and everything has come together, you can season to taste. It might need a little bit of salt and pepper, not much. And then you're going to serve with your pretzel rolls. And I'm sure it's going to be absolutely delicious. So there you have it. Authentic Le Cellier cheddar cheese soup with pretzel roll. Direct from Canada to you, Harrie. And don't worry, I've managed to send some via UPS, so you should be getting it in about, I don't know, 7 to 10 days. Peace.